what you had yesterday was a 5-year assistant at Holman Wiggins leave to go to Texas A&M, considered to be the second best recruiter in college football behind Fran Brown, who's now the coach at Syracuse from Georgia, the head coach there at Syracuse. So this is one of college football's best recruiters who's been with Nick Saban for 5 years, coached 4 different first-round NFL wide receivers in that 5-year span. He was the guy recruiting a lot of those great wide receivers to Tuscaloosa. And, we had Aaron Suttles, worth the watch on the show yesterday. Go back and watch all that. But these are the type of things you keep an eye on. Nothing new for Alabama, right? They lose assistants and a lot of them every year. But this seems like a big one in the recruiting department, at least, Browning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy, and a lot of people are going to point at the fact that he is Ryan Williams' lead recruiter. So, does Texas A&M potentially? I mean, that's awful late to be getting in the mix on this deal. Yeah, but I don't know that I would read a ton into that.
But if you're an Auburn fan, you would definitely read in that maybe that if it came down to Auburn, Alabama, which a lot of people think it is, that somehow maybe has pushed Auburn.
Yeah, you say late in the game, a bag of money will soothe that a little bit.
What, Texas A&M?
Yeah,
that's worked well for them, by the way. It's just paying big recruits, but. I mean, if you're anybody else that wants Ryan Williams, Auburn, or anybody else, you hope this is a crack in the door that you could kick in. I'm sure his recruiting, it's impossible to intensify what is already going on. With that said, I think Holman Wiggins, obviously, you look at the wide receiver spot for Alabama, and his time there, it has not been great. I mean, there have been some great wide receiver classes. But over the last couple of years, you look at the wide receiver play, it has not been great. The guy is a dynamic recruiter. I personally believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I personally believe it is easier to replace dynamic recruiter than it is dynamic position coach.
I would agree.
I think the hardest thing to do is find the perfect combo. But right. I would like my odds, if I'm a Nick Saban or any other college coach, I would like my odds having to replace a dynamic recruiter over having to replace a position coach or a coordinator that is the best at what he does.
I could not agree with them more. I could not disagree with you more. The elite recruiter brings in a talent level that you don't have to coach it.
But I'm just saying, I think there are more of those. I think there are more.
I would agree. I think there's better recruiters than coaches.
I don't think so. I would rather have a plus recruiter who's a C on the field coach when it comes to assistants.
I'd rather
not coordinators, but assistants.
I'd rather have the combo. What you're saying is, obviously, if I have to pick one to sacrifice,
like
I'd rather sacrifice the X's and O's.
Like if we're playing a Madden game, a style or an EA Sports, and you have to build your coach, your on the field coach,
right?
And you have to, if you boost up his recruiting, his on the field skills go down, I would skew all the way A plus, because when Holman Wiggins was a great wide receivers coach, when he had DeVonta Smith and Waddle and all those guys, right? How good now? Does he look like a great on the field wide receiver coach right now? No. You know why? Because he doesn't have those other guys. When he looked like he was a great wide receiver coach, when he had those 4 first-round draft picks. So I'd rather have the recruiter.
Okay,
give me the Jimmy
and Joes. You would rather have the Mario Cristobal.
No, not his head coach or coordinator. But we're talking about one of the rank and file assistants, the wide receiver coach.
I mean, the offensive line coach.
The offensive line coach.
He was well respected.
But that's right. He was a hell of a recruiter. He was perfect to be on the staff. You can debate whether or not he'll ever be a good head coach.
Well, Holman Wiggins got to Tuscaloosa in 2019.
Right.
Receiving was good then. Receiving was good in 20. And that's where it started to drop off.
Right.
After DeVonta Smith is where the receiver room in Tuscaloosa has started to drop off.
Because the talent started to drop off.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as Pritch Law says in the chat room, remember how excited Bama fans were to get Benson transferring in this past offseason and Harrell transferring in the offseason before. I mean, combined receptions for those two guys. Well, he probably is it in the 20s?
Oh, no, I think it's lower than that.
It probably is. Probably in the teens or the single digits. I mean,
y'all can blast me all you want on this right here. But Alabama's receivers played above their skill set this year, in my opinion. Even
if they did, they played to a B level.
Yeah, but they can only play as good as they are, right? and I think they played above what this group has shown they were this year.
Well,
compared to last year, this group was a lot better until the semifinal game where they disappeared.
Yeah, well, I would just say that the staff is, I don't want to say swung and missed on receiver talent. It's just not what it once was.
For the record, to bring that full circle, Benson had 13 catches this year. Harrell had 2 last year. It is 15. Yep. So that's your 2 big transfer portal guys at receiver after Jamison Williams. Obviously, he was the big transfer portal guy. But your big transfer.
That was the last great receiver
that Alabama had?
Yep.
It was. I mean, you can't argue that. Now, I mean, that's not that terribly long ago. He played the 2021 season. But yeah, I mean, that's their 2 big portal guys at receiver, and those were swings and misses, you would have to say. And I thought Harrell was going to be a Jamison Williams type, where he was just a burner that was going to stretch the field for Alabama, and he never did that. Benson was the guy, though, that in all the Sugar Bowl practices, and Luke and Bill was not alone in this, but Luke and Bill was the first one to say it. Guys, he's tearing up the Sugar Bowl practice. Alabama's struggling to cover him in Sugar Bowl practices. He's the talk of practice. And then you talk to people that covered Alabama, and they're like, yeah, the coaches really, really like this guy. And it just, for whatever reason, didn't develop. And I'm not going to place all that at the feet of Holman Wiggins, but he is the receivers coach. So if your unit is not developing and if your unit is not living up to what they're supposed to, some of that's got to be on you, if not all of it.
So Holman Wiggins goes to Texas A&M, 5 years with Alabama, second best recruiter in the nation, 4 first-round draft picks. There's 2 openings now, I guess, or the openings continue to pop open for Alabama as they come back.